Hello, welcome. It's your man in Shed NEP. Hope you are all well. So, I'm going to do a quick video today. Now, this is the thing about the topic we're going to do today. Today, we're going to look at racism and how it is. There's an undertone of racism in the UK. It's not. Now, sorry, I say it's not. I'm talking at this from a mid 40-year-old white man. So I don't personally have to encounter racism every day. I'm English, so I don't get called bloody foreigners and things like that. And being white, I certainly don't get looked down on as potentially a person of colour may. But it is definitely there. But my question is, it is wrong. I completely 100% back that it shouldn't happen, because why should it? And where does it come from? Well, where does it come from? Well, that's probably from when there was a British Empire, or European countries had empires, and we would go, and there was a slave trade, which was horrific, but it was there, so you can't really say, oh, we shouldn't have had a slave trade. Well, we did, so let's deal with that. But for me, is if your ancestors were displaced by the British, even if it was 100 years ago, and you're part of the Commonwealth, well, surely if our queen is your queen, then our country is your country. I don't have a problem personally with us having people from all around the world coming to live here, because a majority of them are actually useful and they're going to have their families there. You can't expect a doctor, a nurse, an engineer to come here and live on his own without his family. So, if we're going to bring over one doctor, we have to accept that he will have a certain amount of baggage, which will be his family. So, you can't expect someone to move abroad and have no family there, because that's just being unrealistic. So fair enough, but the actual abuse that they take on possibly a day-to-day basis is shocking. And then there are those who will certainly take it when they do well. So if we take the last 2 weekends, we had England going out of the Euros, and it just happened that the 3 players that missed the penalties were colour or mixed race, which was unfortunate. Personally, I was upset because they missed penalties. Other people, they got personal and got abusive towards him because of the colour of his skin. Then we have Lewis Hamilton, who for me is possibly the greatest Formula 1 driver of all time. I think his stats tell you that, and people can argue that racing nowadays is this, that, and the other. Well, he's still winning it, and he's still a 7 times world champion, and you don't get that if you're not exceptionally good. So, he's possibly our greatest ever sportsman, and people are still having a go at him because of the colour of his skin, and he's a bit flashy. But why not? You've got the money, why not? He does a sport which is potentially life-threatening every time he steps inside his car. So why shouldn't he have the ability to be a little bit flashy, and go around and be a bit cool? Why not? Yeah. You don't like it because he's not Nigel Mansell or Damien Hill, who are your white man and and they were both very good drivers. They weren't the same level as Lewis, or they weren't consistency. They were world champions, so they were for a while the same sort of standard, but they didn't have the consistency of Lewis Hamilton, who has been in the sport for long enough and is now a world-class champion. You know, and these footballers, going back to them, you know, they're all young. I think Marcus Rashford was the oldest. I think he's 22, 23, so he's not exactly an old boy, is he? And yet we're slagging him off, and he's endured this all his life. But my other question is, okay, so that's possibly where it's come from the colonies and that. But who are the right people to talk about it? Because I personally feel, as a middle-aged white man, I'm probably not the ideal person to do it. And this is the thing. Oh, you're talking about it. Well, what right do you have? Because you don't suffer it. Yeah, get that. And then you get a person of colour on. Well, you're just bloody moaning again, aren't you? Complaining about stuff that might happen a little bit, but isn't really a big issue. That'd be the white people complaining about the black people, complaining that they're getting abused. So, you know, who is the right person to talk about this? You know, you're from abroad. You should accept our laws to a degree. I totally agree with that, because you can't go to a foreign country and think that you can just have your own rules and laws. That's fair enough. You know, I couldn't go to Saudi Arabia and get drunk because it's against the law there. So there are certain rules which you have to sort of agree with. But excuse me. But there are certain things which, you know, you have to be allowed to have certain things. We're quite lucky in in Europe, or certainly Western and Central Europe. We do have freedom of speech. We do have personal rights. We do have the ability to vote for who we want, and we have many freedoms where in some countries, maybe Russia, China, certainly places like North Korea, you have a totalitarian government who basically are not voted for. I think in China they have 10 years and then they're replaced by another communist government. I'm not quite sure how it totally works, but I know that as a lower class person, you don't get any say in who is governing you, and they can do pretty much what they want within reason, and it's a bit of a worry really in some ways. But you know, who knows? Is racism worse because of the freedoms that we have in Europe and the United States? I'm not even going to get started on the racism in the United States, because I have it all day. I think a few hours, a few minutes, you know. We don't want it to go on for too long and get too political. But you know, it's not just colour, is it? Let's be fair. It's also racism is also towards whatever religion you decide to go for. Holy wars have been going on for thousands of years, whether it's the Muslims against the Christians. And let's get one thing totally straight before we get going. It seems to me, and I could be wrong here, but it does seem to me that most people will say, oh, terrorists, oh yeah, they're all Muslims. Really? Did you never ever hear of the Crusades, where thousands of Muslims are slaughtered because they're Muslims by the Christians? That is that's just the way it was. And if anyone thinks thinks that the Christians are the good guys, then it's a bit like saying the rebels in Star Wars were just the good guys. You know, it is a bit more child friendly than rebels against the Empire, but it's a similar sort of thing. You know, it depends which side you're on. It would be like saying, oh yeah, the Taliban, they're the bad guys. But when you go back to the Middle East uprisings, the Americans were actually giving them weapons because they saw them as the good guys, and then they turned into jihadists, and we don't like them anymore, and things like that. So let's not get bogged down with who the good guys are, because I can assure you that us in the Western world are not necessarily the good guys in everyone's eyes, and terrorism is in the eye of the beholder, I would say, because if you're the one getting blown up, or you're the one getting attacked, then I think you have every right to say that was terrorists, rather than, oh no, that was just some random guy with a gun, or some random guy with a bomb. Well, I'm sorry, no, it's the same thing. Terrorism shouldn't have this, oh, it has to have a certain amount of angles for it to be classed as a terrorist attack. If it's a terrorist attack, it's a terrorist attack. But let's be totally aware of that, people. You know, it's what it is. Racism is racism. You know, if I was to go to a majority Muslim country, or a majority country where the majority of the people are a different colour of skin to me, there is a possibility that I could suffer some sort of racism. I've never had to endure it personally in my life. I've never had any of my friends, when I've been around them, endure it, but I am aware that certain friends, I know which ones they potentially could be, would potentially suffer from it, and it upsets me, really. You know, when I look at some of them, so I have my friend Ariel, who has a YouTube channel. I'm not going to talk about that at the moment, but he is from the Philippines. He is, one of the jobs he does is he cleans for the NHS. Now, this is a incredibly successful and intelligent man who had a degree, and before he came to the UK, he was a marine biologist. Ariel, correct me on this if I'm wrong, but because his degree he either got it in the Philippines or in China, and the man's fluent in 4 languages, I think. He's fluent in Mandarin, Filipino, sorry, I'm not sure, still can't get that language quite right, English, and I believe he has another language as well. So he's a very intelligent person, but because he's Filipino, and because he's a bit large, should we be polite that way, Ariel? People think they can possibly take a pop at him and his family, you know. And I'm sure with COVID coming from China, they may have tried to claim that it somehow it was his or his family's fault, which is an absolute load of BS. Let's be real, people. It wasn't the Chinese people that caused COVID. It wasn't the Chinese that are living in England that caused COVID. It certainly wasn't the Filipinos or the Japanese or the Thais or anyone like that who living in England caused COVID. So the abuse that they were getting around the time of that But yeah, I can assure you that as soon as the takeaways opened, they were phoning up and getting their Chinese takeaways and their Indian takeaways and whatever, because we can get a takeaway again now. Doesn't matter that a couple of weeks or months ago you were slagging these people off and blaming them for everything going wrong in the world. I think sometimes as a species we need to take a good long hard look at ourselves and think, are we really the best that we can be, or are we a bunch of bellends? And I think sometimes we have to accept and put our hands up and say, you know what, we are the biggest bunch of bellends. Sort ourselves out, people. We are best. In the words of the mighty Chris Sutton, we are better than that. Surely, aren't we? There's enough going on in the world. Racism can be given a backseat. But as I say, I'm not sure who the right person to talk about it is. Probably some middle-aged white man on his way to work, giving his views really isn't going to change the world. And yet, if you were to put a person of colour to do the same thing, that'd be like, oh, it's another coloured person moaning about the colour of their skin, or the fact that people tell them the colour of their skin. Just stop. Just stop being bloody racist. I'd like to say it's not hard, but clearly it is hard, so there you go. Anyway, this has been a bit of a moan from me. I'm sure this video will make absolutely no difference, because people just don't care. People think it's okay to slag you off because of the colour of your skin, call you all these horrific words. If you're from Bangladesh or Egypt or someone like that, people are going to call you some horrific word which possibly is a slur in a country which you're not even close to being from, but it will happen. I'm not going to use the word, and I'm not going to let you know, but it's an Asian city beginning with P, and it's not right. And there's the obviously infamous N-word, which people like to throw around. Well, get real, people, yeah. Stop the insults, stop being racist, stop being such cocks. Every person from Southeast Asia isn't Chinese, and everyone isn't from India. So, and there's a lot of them, but they're not all from China and India. It's 7 billion people on the planet, and about 2.5 billion are from China and India together. So it's a good majority of the planet, but you can't be blamed for being all of them. And let's get real. Let's get our houses in order and stop being such racist pigs. Anyway, that's been your man in the shed. That's racism dealt with. Hopefully we won't have to talk about this one again. I'm sure that was comprehensive and enlightening, and put that one to bed now. That's racism done. This has been your man in the shed, Andy P. Hope you're all well. Hope you're enjoying today. Hope there is a severe lack of racism around today, people. And yeah, that's your man in the shed done. See you, pals.